So when he did find out, I actually was there to attend the cancer conference. He was, first of all, he was a little surprised because he wasn't expecting that, and someone younger. And he then said, I could probably put you in touch with someone if you wanted to work in a lab somewhere, or at least, visit a lab somewhere. He didn't know where I lived. And I said, oh, well, that's very, very nice of you. And he says, well, where do you live? And I said, San Diego. And he says, oh, I have the lab for you. So he recruited me to join his lab. We were there, and then a week later, back in San Diego, I went out to tour the lab. I met everybody on the lab team, and they were very welcoming, and it was you just feel a certain energy out there at Salk. It has its own energy. It's just amazing. It's just inspiring, down to the architecture. Yeah. In any case, I joined the lab, and I've been with them ever since, 7.5 years, and I'm in my role as an advocate. I give them a face, a personal experience of breast cancer that they tend to get so bogged down in the science at times that I think that it helps to remind them that it's not just theoretical, but actual. Not everybody necessarily has someone they know close to them that's been through this, but if they don't, they unfortunately very well might soon enough. In any case, then the scientists always give me total inspiration because I see their devotion. I see the enormous amount of energy that they put into what they do, and the experiments they take sometimes years and years, and intricate steps in place to get to a certain outcome, and the way they work around the clock. It always has given me incredible hope that there are the advances in medicine coming, and I know some of them have already come right from Salk that I've benefited from. So it's an amazing place, and I've been very blessed to be in Dr. Wahl's lab.
So one of the things that Bianca isn't saying is that about a year after she joined the lab, she asked me if she could make some comments in front of the lab. And I said, sure, anything. And so she said, I have some news for you. I went in for my regular breast exam, and a lump was found. And so they think I have a recurrence. Now, she had come to know my wife over that year. Socially. And my wife wasn't accepting new patients at the time, but because she knew Bianca, she accepted her. And I always brag about my wife.
She's amazing. She's an amazing physician.
She's been on the best physicians in San Diego list for 15 or so years,
that's
something
incredible.
like that. And she helped Bianca, got her in touch with the right surgeons, managed her care. But the thing that I think was most impressive to me is that as soon as Bianca was able, she came back to the lab for our meetings while on chemo with tubes inserted after having experienced, radiation therapy, and showed us the results of the therapy and what it was doing to her and what she was having to go through. And that all gave us an amazing experience that we had never had, an appreciation for the incredible courage that she has. And we've always had an enormous amount of respect and appreciation for advocates and what they do in terms of informing the public, in terms of advocating for the funding that's absolutely critical for advances in research. But also, we had never experienced a person going through cancer. I have, because both of my parents died of cancer, but everybody else in the lab has not. And that was something that every single one of them has told me is an experience they'll never forget and has changed their lives for the future about how they'll pursue science.
That's incredible.
Bianca, wow, I'll tell you. Go ahead, Lizzie, you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I
Yeah, Bianca, I would just
Everybody
say that...
here is almost in tears, right?
No, Bianca, so first of all, God bless your journey and the strength to turn your challenge and your pain into an opportunity for scientists to have a better understanding of not only what they're working on, but maybe to work that much harder to find other solutions and ideas so that folks like you don't have to, go through it. But the courage to do that is incredible. So I just take my hat off.
Well,
Yeah.
thank
to
you so much. Thank you. And a couple of things I just want to mention is that my sister is a 4-time breast cancer survivor. So when I first was diagnosed at age 35, she'd already been through it twice, and she's 3 years older than me. So she had it at age 31 and 34. Then I went through my first breast cancer, did the bilateral mastectomies and chemotherapy based on my young age and family history. And then my sister got it again at age 38, and then she got it again at age 45. And then I got it at age 47, and over a span of, it had been 12 years. So I had a recurrence after 12 years. You pretty much think you're in the clear after about 5, but you can never be certain. I know women who've gotten it again after 25 years.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, and the hopeful thing is, that you can catch it early still. If it's not your first one, it's your second or your third, like my sister, you can still catch it early. She has caught each one early and dealt with it. And when I say that, I mean with the aggressive therapies and drugs to combat it, as well as surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
But she's alive and doing great.
So I want everybody to understand, too, that they're at one of these recurrences. For all parents, I want you to imagine the following. Their older daughter was diagnosed for a 4th time, and at the same time, Bianca was diagnosed. They were both in the hospital simultaneously for surgery for the same disease.
Yeah, and chemo as well.
So this is what, when Bianca and I met, it immediately piqued my interest as a geneticist to ask, have you been sequenced? Has your DNA been sequenced? Is there something that we need to do? And in fact, Bianca had been analyzed, but the technology has grown so fast that when she came here, I said, we must write a grant to get your entire DNA sequenced, because we can do that now, and then we can learn more. And we did that. We got her DNA sequenced, her sister's DNA sequenced, the mother's DNA sequenced. And as is the case with many people, we didn't find anything new. We haven't found any smoking gun. And that just says how much farther we have to go to understand what the genetic risks are, because most of them remain unknown.
This is a good segue, because I have a question for you, because you mentioned, obviously we see the genetic pattern with your family, and again, God bless your entire family for being part of the solution.
And by the way, the male can carry the gene.
Yeah, sure.
And then is not diagnosed. Mm-hmm. And so you don't know. So it isn't just that women, that you look at women in a family. And so this is something that's starting to be done now.
Lizzie, a question I have, I'm going to come back to you in a second, but Dr. Wahl, in connection with the genetics, I have a question for you, because what little I read about some of the research you're doing raised more questions for me than I thought I would ever potentially have, because it appears as if you're digging deep into whether or not the initiation or expression of these cancers resides in the embryonic stem cells, meaning that this is a more bigger challenge than perhaps we've ever envisioned.
Okay, so let me correct something that you said with respect.
Yeah. No, please do.
And I know that the way that it's written up can be interpreted.
I get
that
confused
way.
easily.
That's okay. Many people do. So it actually isn't that.
Okay.
Let me start with some experiments done in the middle of the 1800s, and although I'm old, I'm not that old. Mm-hmm. But I have read about these. And in the 1800s, pathologists were saying, cancer has certain resemblances to very primitive cells in our body. And they were wondering whether it could be that as cancer develops, either the cancer starts from those cells, or maybe the cells reacquire those characteristics. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, that's something we can think about now. Actually, the early people didn't think that. They really thought that it was those early antecedent cells that carried the roots of cancer in them, and they were only revealed later on. But now we know that adult cells can be reprogrammed by just a few genetic alterations to resemble the cells that are present in the early embryo. In our case, in the cells in the early embryo that actually arise to generate the mammary gland. Okay? So that's the work that we set out to do. Now, this is where Komen comes in. and I think it's very important because we have to talk about funding, okay? The National Institutes of Health funds most of the cancer research, most of the research that's done in the United States, okay? But they're conservative. They want you to have a lot of data before they will approve a grant for funding, right? And right now, only about 8% of all cancer grants that are sent in are approved for funding, 8%. So if you think about it in grade school terms, that means you get a 92% on the hardest test you've ever taken, and you fail because you needed a 92.5, okay? All right. So what does Komen do? So Komen says, let us think about the person, and let us think about the idea and the importance of that idea. Let us fund the person to get the preliminary data that might be sufficient to submit to the National Institutes of Health so that it'll be a strong enough proposal to get in that 7.5%.
So if I were going to put it into business terms, you might say that Komen, with the NIH, is maybe a late-stage venture investor.
Right. That's right.
And Komen is a seed investor in
Perfectly said.
In data.
Perfectly said.
Okay.
And then what they're looking for is leverage. So they want to see that their investment is leveraged to get greater impact. And so their investment in me has had a 5 to 10-fold return on investment. If you look at it just in financial terms, if you look at it in terms of...
We're going to hold off on that because this is really good stuff. But we've been having a fantastic conversation with Dr. Wahl and Bianca Kennedy with the Salk Institute, co-hosted today by Lizzie Wittig of Komen San Diego. You've been listening to The Last Battle. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McCullough brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcCullough.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McCulloughe. ChristopherMcCullough.com.
You've heard me bragging about Progressive Medical Center and how they've helped me feel so much healthier. But one thing, Dr. Agoli, that a lot of people come to you with is just unexplained pain. They just can't get any relief. Why can Progressive Medical Center's Pain Management Center help them?
First of all, we have to acknowledge that pain is for real, and you've got acute pain and chronic pain. Here's the problem. That acute pain turns to chronic, which is long-standing, and no one's getting to the root cause. There's several key diagnostic components that help us get to the root of what's causing this pain. Is it inflammation? Once we do a thorough evaluation to get to the root cause, determine if it's structural or if it's a metabolic issue. And this way, we put an individualized program for pain management involving correcting the spine, using certain injections when necessary, and we get our patients out of pain quicker, and they stay out of pain because we teach them how to live their life well.
Don't let yourself live in pain any longer. Get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today at ProgressiveMedicalCenter.com.
Progressive Medical, this is your life, live it well.
The Last Battle is the show where we explore the latest and greatest on leadership, advocacy, science, and therapies in the battle against cancer. On The Last Battle, we'll be exploring with global innovators and leaders the many exciting developments driving optimism in the world of cancer. Great thanks for listening as we move forward with The Last Battle, a Cloudcast Media production.
That goes on between the cancer and the immune system.
Jump in here, go.
You're listening to the last podcast, and we're back here. I'm Lizzie Wittig from Susan G. Komen San Diego with our lovely host who invited me to co-host today, Charles. We're speaking with Dr. Wahl from the Salk Institute and Bianca Kennedy, a patient advocate there. And we were just listening about your current or past and current research, Dr. Wahl. So I'll let you just pick it back up.
Before Dr. Wahl goes back in, though, I once again, every time we do this show, I learn something more amazing about Komen San Diego. And I want every listener to to really, really understand more than ever